Hi and welcome to another video here on my channel UiPath with Jeppe. This video is the third one in my document understanding series. In the first one we did a very quick overview of the entire document understanding process. Then we did digitization in the second video, and in this one we are doing classification. If you haven't watched the other videos, we're going to do a very quick recap in this one. It is going to be very quick, so you could probably consider going back and watching the first two videos after watching this one. Also, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you like the video and want to watch more stuff from my channel. And if you hit the little notification bell, you'll be notified when I put out more videos. So with that out of the way, hold on and let's get to it. So let's do a very quick recap. Document understanding contains basically three different activities. The first one is digitizing the document, that is converting a document into text. The second activity is classifying the document, meaning that you need to find out what kind of document are we dealing with. And once you've classified the document, then you can move on to extraction, where you actually, extract the data that you're looking for. And in this video, as I said, we're doing the classification, so we're trying to determine what kind of documents are we dealing with. Now what you're seeing on the screen here is the happy path, and the happy path isn't always the path that you will be taking. You will see challenges along the way, but we will deal with those as we go. So let's jump into Studio. Alright, so what you see here is a very simple solution where I basically browse for a file. I let the user pick whatever file it is they want to analyze, and then we will digitize that file. And the digitization is what we did in the second video of the series. The first video was an overview of the entire process. Then in the first video we did the digitization. So we're not going to get into that in this video, but I'll just quickly show you what variables we have at our disposal right now. So if we go down to the variables pane, we can see that we have the myFile variable, which is a string pointing to the file that we selected in this browse for file activity up here. Then we have myText and myDocumentObjectModel. Those are the result of the digitized document activity. The myText contains, just the raw text of the document, and the myDocumentObjectModel, as we saw in video number 2, contains, the text and then a lot of metadata about the text. And with these three variables, we are now ready to move on to the classification activities. Also in the project, in the Manage Packages screen, I have installed the UiPath Intelligent OCR activities. You need to do that in order to get the activities installed that we need for this video. So the next thing we'll drag into our design surface here is a classification scope. So I'll just search for scope. And then there's a classified document scope, and I'll just drag that in here at the end. And we can see we need to provide a number of things for this activity to run. The first thing is a document path. Well, we know that already because that's the myFile variable. The document text, we also know that because that's the myText variable. And the document object model we also already have because that's a myDOM variable that we just saw before. Then the output of this classified document scope we will put into a new variable. So I'll hit Ctrl-K and create a new variable called myClassification results. There we go. Now there's a little red warning up here because we still need to do a couple of things. We need to provide what's called a taxonomy. And a taxonomy is basically a definition of what kinds of documents could we run into in this project. So when we installed the Intelligent OCR activities, we got a new icon up here in the top menu bar, the Taxonomy Manager, and this is where we can define a taxonomy, and we'll do that now. But before we do it, let's just go to the project tab over here and see what we have. If I just do a refresh here, we can see here what we have in the project so far, and that's going to change in just a few minutes. So back up to the Taxonomy Manager, open that, and this is an application where you define sort of the structure of the types of documents that you can work with. So inside my taxonomy, I'm going to create a new group, and I'm going to call it Jeppe's Company. And click Save. Then I'm going to click on the Jeppe's Company group, and then in here I can create more categories. So I'll create one called Finance. We could create another group called HR, and we'll just leave it at that. If we go into the Finance category, then we can create different document types. For example, we could create one called Invoice. And if we then click the invoice document type, then we can define what kinds of fields would a typical invoice contain. So typically an invoice would contain an invoice number. We'll make that a text field, click save, add another field, we'll call that one invoice date. That would typically be a date. We can create one called vendor, for example. That would be a text. We can create one called subtotal. We'll make that a number. We'll create one called text. Make that a number as well. And finally, we will create one called total. Now, typically an invoice would contain a lot more fields and data than this, but just for the sake of simplicity, we'll just stick with this so far. So now we have sort of a definition of what an invoice could be, and an invoice would belong to the finance category in the Jeppe company group. So if we close Taxonomy Manager now, and we're back in the project, what we can do is we can go over to the project here again, and if I do a refresh now, you'll see that a new folder appears. Document processing. Inside the document processing, we have this file called Taxonomy.json, and this file contains what we just defined in a JSON format. And we're not going to get much more into that in this video. So it's still complaining that we need to provide a taxonomy for this activity. And the way we do that is by going into our activities here and then type in or search for taxonomy. And then we can use the load taxonomy activity, and that will then output into a new variable that we just call my taxonomy. The results of the load taxonomy activity, and that will look in the document processing taxonomy.json file for that. So now we can type in the taxonomy variable here, or property here. We can type in my taxonomy, and that warning disappears, and there's still a warning left up here because we haven't specified any classifiers yet. So we go back to our activities, and let's type in the search box classifier. And if I just collapse the recent group here, we can see that in the app integration document understanding classifiers group, we have two types of classifiers: the intelligent keyword classifier and the keyword based classifier. In this video, we're going to use the keyword based classifier. This is the simpler one of the two. It is very easy to configure, but it is not as strong as the intelligent keyword classifier. There's also a machine learning classifier, and we may look at that in another video. I am going to make a follow-up video in just a couple of days on how to set up the intelligent keyword classifier. It's very simple actually, but I just don't want to get this video too complex. So in this one, we'll stick with the keyword based classifier. So I'll drag that into our activity here. And what we can see here is that we need to provide a learning file path. So I'll click the little folder here. And I'm going to click the document processing folder and then type in keyword based classifier and click open. That puts in this path into our activity, and now we can click the manage learning link here. What happens when we do that is we get this dialog up here, and this is where we can add keyword sets for the classifier to learn. The way the classifier works is that it looks at the raw text that was extracted during the digitization stage, and then it will look at the words that are included in our keyword set and see how many of those words match the text that was extracted. And the more words, that are recognized, the higher the likelihood of actually matching it with the right classification. So let's try and add a keyword set that might match an invoice. And you simply type them in here. So I'll type in invoice. Most invoices would contain that word. They would probably also contain the word date. Tax. They could contain something like vendor, subtotal, total, price. And I think we'll just leave it at that. Then we'll save it. And now we've actually configured the classifier itself. We do need to activate it by clicking this configure classifiers link down here. And now we need to say that in the document types that we know, which is only invoice because that's the only document type in our taxonomy, we want to use the keyword based classifier in order to identify that type of document. And then we'll click save, and we can see the warning disappeared up here. So just to recap what's going on in this automation. we prompt the user to select a file. Then we take that file and digitize it, convert it into text and into a document object model. Those variables and the loaded taxonomy we put into the classified document scope activity, my file, my text, my document object model, and my taxonomy. We create a new variable that contains the results of the classification activity. So, down here at the end, let's try and log something. Actually, we will do a message box. And what we're going to show in this message box is the classification. And that classification will be found in our variable called myClassificationResults. And that is an array of results, and we'll take the first results, and then we will type out the document type ID. We'll just, to be safe, convert it to a string. So let's try and run this activity. To test this, I have a folder with a number of documents in it. These are all invoices, the first 6, and then I have another document here that's called What is RPA, and that's simply a text document that I use when doing presentations and stuff like that. So let's try and run it with the What is RPA document. So it's prompting us for a file name. We'll go to my desktop into this invoices folder, and we can take the What is RPA document. And now it's going to try and process that and then give us a classification score in the message box. And of course this is going to fail because it's not going to find a classification result, because this particular document doesn't match any of the keyword sets that we've defined. So that's a complete failure, and we can see in the myClassificationResults that it has a length of 0, meaning that there are no items in that array. Put differently, it didn't find any classifications that were valid. So we'll just stop the automation again, and then we'll try and run it again with a document that we actually have a strong suspicion is actually an invoice. So I'll run it, select one of the invoice documents in my folder. We'll take this one. We can actually see here in the preview that that is an invoice. Let's click open. And now we get the classification message box saying that we think, or the automation thinks, that this is a Jeppe's company.finance.invoice type of document. So that's all well and good, but is it really certain that this is an invoice? And the answer is no, it is not. What we can also do, we'll do another message box here. And what the classification result also contains is the confidence level of the classification. So if we go to the myClassificationResult, the same item in that array, we can go to the confidence property and write that out as well as a string variable. So now let's try and run it again with the same invoice. And we'll see that it is classified as an invoice. And if we click OK, we'll get the confidence level. And the confidence level is only 0.45, so it's only 45% certain that this is actually an invoice. That's fairly low, I would say. So what we can do is, because we have quite a few invoices here, we have 7 or so, let me see, 6 invoices in our folder. Let's try and run it on another invoice. We'll take the next one in the list. Click open. It's going to classify it, I hope, as an invoice. It is, and shows the confidence level that's a little bit higher, 0.53, but it's still a very low confidence level. So we were at 0.45 and 0.53 for those 2 first invoices. So what I mentioned earlier in the PowerPoint was that this is sort of the happy path of classification, and it's okay, but it's not really great. So let's have a look at what we can do with some of the other activities within sort of the classification scope of things. Let's jump back into PowerPoint. And we'll just do a very quick recap again. What we just did now was we digitized and we classified, and everything went well, so we'll assume that the next thing to do would be to extract. But things don't always go that smoothly, right? So let's try an alternative path to the happy path. So we'll still digitize and we'll still classify, just as we have done so far. But we'll evaluate the classification result or the confidence level of the classification result. So we'll actually ask the automation if the confidence level is above 0.6, which is still very, very low, but for this demo it's okay. And if it is above 0.6, we'll be happy. Everything is good, we'll extract data. If it isn't above 0.6, we're going to go to what is called the classification station. And the classification station is sort of a little application that will pop up and show the user what types of documents are available. And the user will then actually make a choice. What kind of document is this? Once the user makes that choice, we know for certain, with 100% certainty, that this is, for example, an invoice. And we will move on to extract the data. What we'll also do is we will send this choice to what's called a classification trainer. And that trainer will then write into the JSON file that contains our keywords that the last time that the classifier thought that that combination of keywords was an invoice, it was correct. Now, what is strange with this kind of setup is, by confirming the classifier in that it was right, you're not going to make it any smarter, because it's going to make decisions based on the same keywords the next time it's going to classify a document. But because it is being told that the last time that it thought that this combination of keywords was an invoice, it's going to grow more confident. So it's not getting any smarter, it's just getting more confident. And that's really the difference between the keyword-based classifier and the intelligent keyword classifier, is that the intelligent keyword classifier that we'll see in the next video actually becomes smarter and smarter from time to time, because you not only tell it, yes, you were right the last time, but it's also going to learn what kind of keywords did I find in that last classification that made it correct. So, keyword-based classifier is not very smart. It's never going to get smarter, but it will get more confident. And the intelligent keyword classifier will grow more and more intelligent, not just confident, but more intelligent from classification to classification. So let's jump back into Studio and see if I'm right in any of the stuff that I'm saying about the keyword-based classifier. Alright, so we're back inside Studio. And the last thing we did was we displayed these two message boxes at the end of our automation. We're going to put something in between the classification scope here and these two message boxes. And what we're going to put in is actually, we go to the activities, we're going to put in an if statement. So if, let's say, my classification results confidence is less than 0.6, we want something to happen, because we're not happy with anything that is less than 0.6. So what we're going to do is we're going to show what is called the classification station, and it's right up here in our activities pane. We'll just drag it in. And what the classification station will do is it will display an application where the user will actually get to decide what kind of document is this actually. So we're actually assisting the classifier in making the right decision. So we'll have to provide some information, the path to the file, the text in the file. Oh, wrong. The document object model, the taxonomy, and then the classification result that we reached, or the classifier reached on its own. Like that. The output from this activity is going to be what's called a validated classification result. So we'll call that new variable my validated classification results. Like that. Now what's it going to do with that result? Well, we saw in the PowerPoint that it's going to feed that information into a trainer. So we'll put in a Train Classifier scope below this. And we'll again need to input some information, the path to the file, the text from the file, the document object model, the taxonomy, and then also we'll provide the name of the validated classification results variable. Like that. Then inside the Train Classifier scope, we'll need to provide the trainer itself. And we will go up here to our classifiers, and we can see that along with the keyword-based classifier, we have the keyword-based classifier trainer. So we'll drag that in, and we just need to provide the path to the learning file. Now, if we go into the project tab real quick, the last time we looked in this folder, we only had the taxonomy JSON file. If we do a refresh, we can see that we have this keyword-based classifier file, and that's the file that contains the keywords that we defined for the different types of documents. In this case, only the invoice. So if we provide the file for this path by clicking on the file name, the classifier trainer is happy, and all we need to do now is we need to configure the classifier trainer so that it knows that by using this trainer, it can actually train the invoice document type. So what's going to happen now is that if the classification result that the classifier reaches on its own is below a confidence level of 0.6, it's going to show us this classification station application, and we will select the correct classification, and then the classifier will know for certain that this is the right document. It will feed that information into the training file, and the training file or the classifier using that trainer file will grow increasingly confident over time. So let's try and see if this actually works. Now, the last time we ran it with these two first invoices, I think the first invoice, the confidence level was 0.45. So we'll try and run it again. And what happens now is it shows us this classification station. And we can see here that, again, the confidence level is 45% or 0.45. And then we can actually select up here that this is, in fact, an invoice. And now the confidence level is 100%. And when we then click Save, what happens is that that result is fed into the normal stream of things, and it'll show us the classification result, that is jeppescompany.finance.invoice, and it's going to show us the confidence level of that classification. Now, because there was a human, me, involved in that classification, it still shows 0.45. That's because I should show the validated classification score, and I don't. But let's just ignore that for now, and then click OK. And we'll try and run it one more time. We'll run it on the same invoice. It's going to show us the classification station, but we can actually see that the confidence level has risen a little bit since the last time. So we'll select again that this is an invoice, click Save. Now it's going to show us the slightly raised score because it evaluated it as being higher. We'll run it one more time. On the same invoice. Let's see what happens. And now it didn't show us the classification station. Why is that? That's because if we click OK, we should see the new confidence score, and that is above 0.6, right? So by running it repeatedly on the same invoice, it didn't get any smarter. It's still evaluating the invoice based on the same keywords, but because those keywords were correct in classifying it as an invoice the first times, it now gives it a higher classification confidence score. So if we go and run it one more time, and we can now select the second invoice that first evaluated to a score of 0.53. If we open that or run that, we should probably see that it's not going to run the classification station, and it's going to give us a confidence score of 0.67. So again, this is not getting any more intelligent from one run to the other. It's just getting more confident. And if we look inside of our project, inside the keyword-based classifier file, I'm just going to copy this, paste it, and open a JSON viewer online, and we'll just paste this in and format it correctly. And what we can see is this combination of keywords has been confirmed now twice as being the correct keyword. And if we keep running it, this number of times confirmed value will keep increasing, and with that increasing, the confidence score will also increase each time we run it using this classifier. Again, if you want to use something that actually grows more and more intelligent, guess what? We need to use another set of classifier and classifier trainers, and that is the intelligent keyword classifier and the intelligent keyword classifier trainer. And in just a couple of days, I'm going to do a follow-up video to this video where we do that. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. and click the little notification bell, because that way you will be notified when that video comes out. Also, make sure you check out my channel for a lot of other, I think, fairly interesting videos. Until next time, stay safe, take care, and thank you for watching.